Welcome back to another episode of DHamDIY. Today we're out here on the homestead. We're going to talk about some interesting things and also discover some interesting things. Bought this old pH meter, you know, the ones with the ground probes that you stick into the soil. And we're going to find out what the pH is here on the property. Now, obviously, we have a lot of wood chips here. So we're also going to be, kind of seeing if these wood chips are affecting the pH. I'm sure we've all heard that using, like pines or cedars for mulch, like the needles can affect your pH and make your soil acidic, right? We're gonna see. There's a lot of pine in that. There's a lot of cedar. There's a lot of evergreen type plants in my mulch. So we're gonna see what happened there. We're gonna measure uphill of the property, downhill, where water collects, where I've urinated a whole bunch. It'd be interesting to see what, if anything's going on there. And yeah, so let's get to it. So this is going to be an area of my property that is higher up, the higher side of my property. We're just going to stick this in a bit at an angle so you can see it and watch it as time, as the time changes. But we're going to try to get it as deep in there as possible. And what I'll actually do, I'll stick it in first to kind of rub the connectors and get any oxidation or anything off of them, kind of like that. And that'll clean them off really nice. And then we'll go ahead and stick them in. Oh, it seems as though they're spreading a little bit. We probably don't want that. Okay. Let's see if you can see that. Hopefully you can. Not really. Whatever. Okay, so we've let it sit for a couple minutes. We're going to go ahead and read this. Let's bring you down in what we got here. Alright. So it's looking like we're right at about 7. A little under maybe 6.8. Something along those lines. Kind of wiggle you around. Yeah. Alright, so up high, we could use some acidity. Definitely use some acidity. This will be actually smack dab in the middle of where my home will be, so maybe not here, but okay, that's extremely hard to take out. Maybe not here, but in a different location. Let's go ahead and go to the next spot. Okay, so this marks pretty much the center of the orchard. Let's go ahead and dig in a spot here, and oh, that is some mushy soil. Very, very, very moist. So let's go ahead and stick this in, and we'll find out what the pH is here. So that one slid in a lot easier. Bear it back. And it looks like we have just about the same as the last one, right? Not too much change there. A little bit in front of the 7, so probably 6.9, probably 6.9 actually. Little too neutral. We need some more acidity, but that's in the middle of the wood chip pile, and the wood chips have been sitting here for maybe a month or two. So I can't say myth busted quite yet, but we're gonna check one more spot and we're gonna figure out if these wood chips have any effect on the pH at all. We're gonna go right over there, right next to this massive wood chip pile, and we're gonna measure right in the water next to it where all the, what do they call them, terpenes are collecting, and hopefully all the other acidic or basic chemicals that are in those wood chips. Okay, so the wood chip pile is right there, and this was a puddle, and it was really dark brown. You could tell all of that wood chip water soaked in here, and was just sitting in a big puddle, and the terpenes were just, you just tell it was very rich in wood chip chemicals. So we're gonna go ahead and stick the probe in here and see what we get in a couple of minutes. Not the exact same. 6.9-ish. I mean, so what does that tell us, right? These aren't all pine mulch. This isn't all from pine trees, right? This wood chip pile has got a large variety of different types of trees blended up together in it, right? So, no, this isn't all pines, and no, this isn't a wood chip pile that's been sitting here for 5 years. But it's been sitting here for a couple months, and so far nothing seems to have changed. And even if it did change, it would be for the better, because I need a little bit of acidity in this orchard anyway. So, you know, for a lot of you, you might have already known, okay, you know, he's not going to find anything here. But for me, it's very reassuring to know that I'm not doing anything negative to this piece of property I bought, right? So that's good news. So we're going to measure 2 more spots, and then we're going to talk a little bit about just how useful useless information can be. And I know it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but bear with me, right? We'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. So this marks the most wet spot in my property. It's just really wet here all the time, and every time it rains, it collects water here. And it's next to the wood chip pile, but we're still going to measure here. So I'm going to stick this on in, and we'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, so we're in the exact same spot as before. And just so you can see, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the, that's the light meter, and then this would be the wetness meter. So it's not like the thing's broke. I mean, it's giving accurate readings. Accurate-ish, I'm sure. You know, how accurate can you get like this? Unless you send your soil into a lab or something, which is not too big of a concern to me. The primary, you know, things for me is moisture, sunlight, ground cover, you know, things like that. But, you know, you definitely don't want to ignore pH. You want to take pH seriously. Anywho, I went out here and actually measured on a really rainy, cold day, right after a massive storm. Actually, the storm you saw in the beginning of the video, that was the storm. I mean, it was tornadoes were coming, you know, or like touching down in some areas of Texas. It was a big storm, and it was really wet out here, and I kept getting really weird readings. I was using pH strips as well, but because it was raining, the rainwater was hitting the pH strip and like messing it up. So, you know, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do this. But yeah, the meter was reading more acidic. It was reading between 6 and 6.5, and I thought, oh, I have it. But then when the pH strip was getting hit with that acid rain, I was like, okay, I got to redo it. So sure enough, here we are again with some basic-ish or some more alkaline soil than in the previous test. So that marks that spot. Now we have one more spot. Let's go check it out. So this is the urination spot. I've peed here countless times. I know I probably shouldn't, but no restrooms out here, you know? Am I going to pee in a bottle? I guess I could. Anyway, yeah, I've been urinating here on the side of the shed, and the grass is incredibly green here and just beautiful. Look at that grass. You could definitely graze the goats or what have you on this. It's high in nitrogen, no wonder. You know, it's almost like somebody was peeing in it. Anyway, let's go ahead and stick this in. Alright, so we've let it sit, and we are at, I would have to say, what looks to be probably either 5.9 or 6.1. It's kind of moving around as I'm moving it. 5.9, let's go with. So, does pee or urine affect soil pH? Absolutely. I'll go ahead and say right now that it makes it more acidic. Now, that's something I might have to fact check, but it seems to be the case, at least in my experience. I'll probably look into that a little bit more, and I might end up urinating a little bit on, you know, where the orchard's gonna go, if it's doing this, right? If it's making the pH more acidic. So very interesting to note. Anywho. And I'll give you all a tip as well for if you are going to need your soil to be more alkaline. Let's say, for instance, your whole soil is like that 5.9, and you want to get it, you know, upwards 6.3, 6.4, somewhere around there. Go to the lake, right? Maybe it's dehydrated in your area right now. Hopefully you have lakes near you and you don't live in Nevada or something. Well, I guess Nevada has a lake. Anyway, go to your local lake, right? Especially if you live in Texas, there's plenty of lakes. Most of them man-made, I think all except one. Go to your local lake. Hopefully there's a drought going on near you and the soil or the lake line has receded, and go collect shells. I did that over in my area because I knew I might need, I think it's calcium carbonate, what shells are primarily made out of. And they're just like clams or something, like lake clams or lake oysters. I'm not, sure. But yeah, there's shells everywhere, and you can grind them up. You can even put them in the oven and convert them to a whole different type, a more alkaline version of calcium carbonate. I can't quite remember. It bakes off some of the carbon or some of the oxygen or something and releases CO2. Anyway, yeah, so you can do that, and that'll work fantastically organically, and it'll add an extraordinary amount of calcium to your soil, which your plants desperately need, especially tomatoes with that blossom end rot. Y'all know about that. Yeah, so just, and even it might even add some a little bit of a, hold on a minute, there's a bumblebee that has gotten quite close to me. Kind of admiring him. It'll also add maybe a little bit of biodiversity in the microbiology of your soil. You might add some good microbes with that clam, like green algae on it or something. Now my neighbor over here, great guy, met him recently, talked to him every now and again, cool guy. He had a lot of catalpa on his property, and at the time I didn't even know what catalpa was, but I was thinking about it, I was like, what type of tree is that with those long beans? What? They just looked real foreign to me, and maybe I'm not a true Texan or true Southernman for not knowing about the catalpa, but anyway, it is what it is, right? Born in the city, gotta just deal with what you were given. Yeah, so I didn't know. I was like, why does this have so many catalpas on his property? And I was, I looked up, I found out what catalpas were first of all, and about the catalpa worm, and I thought to myself, wow, okay, yeah, that's exactly why he's growing a lot of catalpas, because they are fantastic for the catalpa worm, and we're right next to the lake. His I think his father built that house or whatever. Anyway, he's deceased now, but yeah, so he probably enjoyed fishing a whole lot, and it's interesting to have made that connection with somebody who's no longer alive and that lived years ago, from just trees. Like, I just thought that was kind of powerful, and so I've been applying to that to a lot of other things in life, right? To the phrase "don't judge a book by its cover" is used all the time, but I think kind of misunderstood. You can tell a lot about somebody by maybe the way they keep their lawn, or the way they, the trees they plant on their property. If you see a lot of cottonwoods or tulips or poplars, you might think that maybe that person is running out of time, and they want shade while they're alive, or maybe they're just impatient. You can, or in my case, someone who's planting a fruit orchard, and with fruit trees from seed. That's usually indicative of somebody who probably has a lot of years to go in life and is going to be able to reap those benefits of waiting up to 8 years for a fruit tree to start fruiting. So, that's interesting. And not only did I do that with this neighbor here, but with the neighbor to the other side of me, and I want to show you that right now. So, what you see here is a Chinese tallow. It can be mistaken, I suppose, for maybe a cottonwood, but yeah, so this is a Chinese tallow, and the Chinese tallow, I didn't know what it was either, right? So I saw this tree and I was thinking to myself, what on earth, what is this tree? I have no idea. It was so foreign to me with these. It has the trident seed, and I'll point up here so you can see just now. Oh, another catalpa, actually. Funny enough, people like them out here. The catalpa worm is used for fishing, and it is only found on the catalpa tree. It's the only source of food for this catalpa worm, and fish supposedly absolutely love them. They're very free bait, right? Anyway, here is the Chinese tallow, and I had no idea what it was. They call it the popcorn tree as well because the seeds look like popcorn. And yeah, I didn't know what it was, and they're kind of hanging over my property here and here, kind of coming over. And so I looked it up and I said, okay, Chinese tallow, wow, there it is. It has beautiful colors in late fall. It's very esteemed for its colors. Known as an invasive species or whatever, but I think that's stupid just because, we talked about the China berry. Y'all should know all about the invasive species. But yeah, this plant has vegetable wax on the seeds and can be harvested to make candles or all kinds of different cosmetic products. And then the actual seed inside of that vegetable wax layer has, what do they call it, like tangelia oil or something like that. A ton of oil. The third most producing plant from oil, most oil producing plant in the world. I think first and second, or the third most. It's the third most oil producing plant in the world. First and second being palm oil and algae oil. So yeah, this plant has profound worldwide uses, but I couldn't find one video of somebody making vegetable wax from this plant. I find that just really absurd, honestly. Why nobody would be trying to make a candle out of it. And with all that's came out about soy, and all the estrogen mimicking hormones in it and stuff, I find it very, very odd that somebody wouldn't be using the Chinese tallow tree as a replacement for like soybean oil or vegetable wax, like soybean wax and candles, because I don't want to light that in my home if it's going to be making me more feminine. No offense, but I got plenty of feminine characteristics already, right, with this gardening stuff. So I certainly don't need any more womanly traits. Anyway, no, I'm joking. But yeah, so the Chinese tallow, so it went from me not knowing what these plants were and being almost a little bit put off by them, like, oh, what are these plants? Why are they growing those? To being like, I want to grow those on my property too, and the tables have turned in a sense. I just think that's really interesting. One, so either this, my neighbor it's either my neighbor from planting the Chinese tallow really is, an outdoorsman, maybe, perhaps really enjoys nature and loves seeing the colors in late fall, or maybe they're into producing their own biofuel with the oil from the Chinese tallow. It shouldn't be too hard to process and turn into biodiesel. Not that is my neighbor making biodiesel, probably not, but perhaps that was their thinking, or maybe the people who lived there prior to them. It's interesting, the context clues of situations, and by reading a book, judging a book by its cover or whatever, you can learn a whole lot. Maybe if someone has pine trees planted all along their property, they might have lived in the north when they were younger, and maybe they're just trying to bring a piece of that home. Or maybe in far east Texas, there's a lot of pine trees, but you get what I'm saying, So knowledge is power, right? People ask all the time, like, oh, trees just aren't my thing, I don't understand, trees or whatever, and that's fine, but just like that, you can see how powerful knowledge like that can be, knowing about the Chinese tallow tree or the Catalpa tree. So something to think about, and no such thing as useless knowledge is my take on it.